Hey, hey, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Notes from the Edge. I am your host, Lisa Lacy, and this is the place that we have the conversations we should have been having all along. Guess what? You ain't talking about it. So we're gonna, and our guest today is already laughing. That's good news. Today we have Ashley Gibson with us. Ashley is a psychotherapist, EMDR therapist, executive consultant, and the founder of Meaning in Practice, where she helps mission driven organizations understand why burnout is often a structural problem, not a personal failure. Thank you. Before becoming a therapist, Ashley spent 13 years leading marketing initiatives inside nonprofit organizations, healthcare systems, arts organizations, and even served on the original pre-Broadway marketing team for Hamilton. That unique combination, and boy, is it. We love people who have amazing stories on here of executive leadership and clinical psychology, allows her to identify the invisible organizational patterns. Hello. They tell us everything that slowly teach high achieving people to ignore their own needs in service of the bigger mission. Through her research, consulting, and clinical work, she challenges leaders to rethink burnout, organizational culture, and the hidden costs of performing strength and resilience. Her work is helping organizations replace wellness theater with a meaningful structural change for everybody from the top down. Ashley, welcome to Notes from the Edge. How are you today, my friend?
I am so well, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about this chat. You are talking our language in here, patterns and
Yeah,
systems and structure and top down leadership and how that trickles. But um when we had first connected, you loved the
yeah,
question, what did you perform in order to survive? And we'll revisit that for you
yeah.
personally. But why was that so striking to you?
Because the word performance, I think, carries that double meaning. Obviously, you shared that I come from a theater, if not performance background, then a theater background. And performance shows up in our lives in so many different ways, but I was performing being fine. So I
Yep.
found that word very striking because it's not just uh, something that I was trying to do. It was actually coming because it was the result of these patterns that had perpetuated whether or not I realized it.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about how you ended up here in terms of the transformative moment of going from I'm in marketing
Yeah.
and now I help people as a psychotherapist. How does that
Yeah.
transition happen?
Yeah. It was a bit of a slow burn. I went back to school to become a therapist while I was still actively doing my marketing job. So I was,
Woo!
triaging budgets all day. I was in the middle of getting a divorce. I had a small
Oh
toddler. It
my
was a
God.
lot.
Throw that one
And
in there because that's
but
a
just,
life subject.
all the same things. And then in the evenings, I would go and see clients. I'd be sitting there, seeing a 6 p.m., a 7 p.m., an 8 p.m. psychotherapy client. And I started to realize that the burnout I was experiencing as a corporate leader, sitting in my fourth Zoom of the day at 11 a.m., was the same burnout I was then seeing sitting across the therapy couch from me when I was in the
Oh,
therapist's chair that
yeah.
evening, because I work with burnout and identity work and trauma and high achievers. And so I went, oof, I feel seen. And I came to this crux where I couldn't do both at the same time anymore. I was juggling too much.
Yeah,
But B, I really kind of felt this clarion call that I have this really unique intersection of perspectives.
you
And I
do.
got really curious about all of the research about burnout and why we keep calling it an individual failing when it's certainly not. So I went deep into the research rabbit hole. I took the leap. I left my marketing job. I see here
Yay!
here at the therapy office today, I see clients during the week, but then I also do this lovely, exciting advisory work and just about to launch my white paper around what I deemed the maladaptive organizational copy process. So we can talk about that.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you just brought it up. Lead right into it. What is the paper about? When are you going to be finishing it? Are you just starting?
I'm almost done. It has to go
Oh,
for a few more rounds of edits, but I'm hopeful that it's going to launch sometime early this fall.
perfect.
So, one of the really cool things about being a clinician is you get exposed, I'm a lifelong learner, you get exposed to all of these amazing different modalities. And I'm trained first and foremost in EMDR, which I know we'll talk about. But I got really interested in something called the structural analysis of social behavior. And it's a modality that was developed back in the 70s by a researcher who said, oh, all human systems, all interactions share some common dynamics, right?
Very
Two
cool.
primates walk into a room. Are we on the same side? Are we together or apart? Are we in a positive or a negative space? Is this friendly or hostile? And is this about me, you, or my relationship with myself? And that mechanism can be scaled up and mapped to whole systems at scale. And so, with the permission of that research team, I have taken that and scaled it up to go. A copy process is the way that we are taught to treat ourselves, either by the way we were treated, what was modeled by us, for us,
Mhm.
or how we treat ourselves as a response to those things.
Yeah.
And it perpetuates over time. And in organizations, from a systems level, it doesn't mean the organization is the villain. Often the
Right.
intent is really positive, but it can capitulate down to perpetuate this cycle where you end up internalizing a message where we say you're like family, but when we take advantage of you, you end up internalizing that, and that looks like burnout.
Yeah, especially if you were taken advantage of by your family as a child.
Yeah,
Like, no
well,
fun.
100%. And that's honestly, that's what's so interesting to me. And it doesn't make its way into as much of my, work when I sit with an organization or a board. We're not necessarily
Right.
talking about their childhood trauma, but when I'm sitting in the therapist spot, absolutely, because I'm sitting across the couch from lawyers and doctors and folks who are objectively brilliant and
Uh-huh.
also not only has their burnout been perpetuated by the organizational systems, they're more susceptible because they have a history of childhood trauma
I love
often.
that. The word's just more susceptible to repeating patterns. Patterns are something we love to talk about in here because we love changing them if they are no
Yes,
longer serving us.
that's the
So,
hope.
yes, 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 yes. So let's talk about performing I'm fine and performing strength and performing confidence and let's talk about changing
Yeah,
that pattern. I think our work, yours and mine, in here today is one step in the right direction because we're
I hope
talking
so.
about
I
it.
hope so.
But when I was a successful high achiever, making the six figures with all the toys and the blended family that was very
Yep.
polished on Facebook, thanks to me. When I finally came forward, I was like, yeah, no, guys, this has been sucking for 13 years. They were like, wait,
Yeah.
what? No, we don't even believe it. I was like, yes, this has been terrible. This has been terrible. But I
Yeah.
didn't have language. I didn't have
Right.
language until I entered
Yep.
inpatient rehabilitation, which I went in
Yep.
thinking I had maybe a bad marriage and a slight drinking problem and came out
Yeah.
with a chart this thick. But and there's shame around saying this is not okay. I'm struggling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I had been identified as performing fine, performing straight. Oh, she's
Yeah.
got it. She's got it. She's got it. And so I didn't want to
Yeah.
say the words, I'm not okay.
Hmm.
So talk to me about why do we perform competence
Yeah. Because the
in
system
your
has
work from what you've
asked us
observed?
to. Yeah, no, truly, it is, I think it's so impactful, and, what's cool about the systems framework is it's immediately useful in the therapy room and in organizations and anywhere in between, because
Very cool.
to immediately realize that it is not because of me, and yet at the same time, it's keeping you locked into a pattern that
Uh,
makes it feel as if you have no other option. Because culturally, we have decided that if you are struggling, it is a failure of individual resilience, right?
oh.
We're going to slap on more wellness benefits, or you can do a Talkspace app, or you can,
Yeah, that's
I'm
gonna
not
fix
being
all this.
that's definitely going to fix it.
It's a
And
good tool. It's a
it is,
tool,
and
but it's
it is
yeah,
a tool. And
yeah.
look, I'm a therapist. I want people to take care of themselves individually, but we can't pretend that individual fixes are going to repair a systemic issue,
Oh,
because This started long before you. And then that
Yeah.
shame you feel is because it has been deeply embedded in you that this is an individual problem. And
Yeah.
so
It's all my fault.
I should
Yeah.
be able to handle this.
Yeah.
From an EMDR perspective, those core beliefs that have gotten internalized literally get stored in your nervous system in a way that you can logically look at it, Lisa, and go, "Ah, I know it's not my fault, but I feel like it's my fault," right? There's
Yeah.
this discrepancy between what I know to be true and what I feel in my nervous system.
Here and
And
here. And guys, I'm pointing
exactly.
to my brain and my heart and my body. Yeah. Just those of you
Exactly.
just listening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And it constantly feels not right. Like something's off. Something's off. This
Yep.
does not feel
Yeah.
comfortable,
Yeah.
right? And that puts you, the individual, on eggshells and on edge all the time, and you're not sure why. And yeah, you
Yeah.
do internalize that. I was certainly like, no, I should be able to take even more on. Let me start
Yep.
another side business.
Yes.
So
If
yeah,
I
why not?
just try harder, right?
Oh, that's a good one. That's what I did, girl.
Yep.
I was like, let me run a martial arts training center too. That's
Well,
brilliant.
and the trap is that like sometimes trying harder works, and I'm doing like air quotes because it seems like it does for a few minutes work, but ultimately like you end up back in the same. That's the thing about patterns, like you can enter the system from different areas and you're still going to funnel down to that same maladaptive belief.
It was also a distraction, my friend,
Yes,
and
that too. Yeah.
the end result was total mental collapse.
Yeah.
It was like throw one more business onto the fire, and yeah,
You
we're
don't
gonna end
know
up
it's
in rehab.
happening. You don't know it's happening until you end up in rehab, or until you end up way past the point of going, okay, like I juggled my multiple careers for way too long. It took uh, probably 2 years before I knew I had to, like, I really sat with the knowledge I had that I had to pull the plug and make a big change. And then another almost 2 years after that to actually make the change. So I
It's a
feel
big
that in my
scary
bones.
leap.
It is.
It's a big
Yeah.
scary leap to really jump into what you know you're supposed to be doing, especially if there's a check coming in, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah,
Yeah. The
yeah.
term I've been using lately is cost accounting, right? Your brain is
Ooh,
literally doing the calculations around what's the opportunity cost here? What's it going to cost? Not just literally, but in terms of your reputation, about the way you synthesize your own identity, right? If you are coming
yeah.
from a career, I had 13 years in high stakes marketing. I was on the original marketing team for Hamilton. I was carrying around this identity that was like, this is objectively so cool. I have a whole master's in it. Why would I give it up? And so when I taught cost accounting, I had to really consider not just getting my finances in order or what it was going to take to literally make a change, but I had to get to a breaking point where I said, my identity is too fractured to hold this anymore. And it was really
Ooh.
identity work more than anything.
Okay, let's go there. I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so I love the word identity was fractured.
Mhm.
Talk to us about that. Kind of elaborate. If people are out
Yeah.
there going, "Oh, something's off. I don't know what. I'm tired all the time.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated all the time. I'm pissy at home all the time. Like
Yeah.
something's not working. I don't know what it is." I love the fact that you
Yeah.
sat with friends. She sat with herself and
Oh,
asked the better
yeah.
questions. But what was the realization? What were some symptoms of
Yeah.
in your lived experience, identity fracture? So what is
Mhm.
it and how did you know it?
Yeah. So for me, I think I look at it through two lenses, the nervous system, right? First and
Mhm.
foremost. And then I think about, I'm late diagnosed neurodivergent. So ADHD, I talk about executive functioning a lot. And when we talk about something being fractured, what I start to think of immediately is the cost it takes to do context switching. So if I'm going from, big meetings all day, triaging budgets and working on brand work and all this fun stuff, and then I turn around and I have to literally switch gears in my brain to sit in the therapist chair and
Mm,
occupy a total, and then I have to go home and be a mom. This is not new. Everybody's juggling multiple roles at once, but the longer you do that, the harder it is for the brain to do the context switching. It's why we talk about the idea that multitasking from like a neurological standpoint is kind of a lie. It's not doing you many favors. It's actually taking up more bandwidth in your
Yeah,
brain
that
than
was a
it's
big old
giving you.
switch they pulled on us, right? We
I
were like,
know.
especially
Well,
as ladies, we were like, I got all these 100 plates right here.
multitasking. Yeah.
Yes.
And to your point, like a switch, yeah, because we know about how like 3% of the brain works. We are constantly still learning and researching. I'm
Oh,
sure
I love brain science.
have
We
me
know
have
so
me
much
back.
more.
We know so much more now, and yet we
Yeah,
still know, oh,
so
sometimes it
little.
feels like nothing. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the willingness to be able to go with whatever the newest information is, is important. But I digress. So identity fracture, really, I think about, for me, how challenging it was to context switch. And the symptom was it was living in my nervous system. I felt constantly dysregulated, and to the point where I couldn't relax, even if I had a
Mm.
block of time where I was supposedly able to relax. And then it was showing up in my relationships as well. I didn't feel present with my
Those are a
daughter.
good place to look, friends. Good place
Hmm.
to look.
And there's a difference between being present and feeling present, because I was
Oh,
constantly
yeah.
carrying a mental load in the back of my mind of, oh, there's an email I've got to answer. And I'm supposed to be on right now.
Yeah, my
Always
husband calls it,
on.
you're working right now. I was like, oh, yes, I am.
Mentally, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know that the symptoms would be the same for everyone. And, identity itself is kind of a myth, because we're not just one thing. We are a collection of multiple parts and fragments, and it's spiralic. We change throughout our lives. We keep reiterating. But
And we
when I
want
say,
that, right?
and we
We
want
want
that, that's
that.
healthy.
Yeah.
It's developmentally appropriate. It keeps us engaged. But really, when I say fractured, what I mean is the nervous system is not agreeing, right? The head and the heart, the body is not aligned with where the brain is. And when I work with trauma survivors and high achievers, folks who've experienced this kind of fracture or burnout, it is so literally painful for them sometimes to try to drop into the body and sit with a hard emotion that they've been dissociating from this whole time.
Mhm. Yeah. What's interesting though, okay,
Yeah.
hard at first.
Yeah.
What's fascinating and so crazy cool is that because I was drowning myself in a bottle for 20 years, like running
Yeah.
from these emotions, right? All the trauma,
Yeah.
all the stuff. And
Yeah.
it was hard to practice at first, but then it becomes fun. And then you eventually get to a point where
Yeah.
what was I running from?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is not that bad sitting in this grief and this
Yeah.
little bit of resentment and this anger and but
Yeah.
have support, friends. Make sure you are
Yeah.
supported in this process. So, for people who are not familiar with EMDR,
Yeah.
because your eyes lit up when you talked about EMDR, so I can tell you've had some amazing magical
Yeah.
experiences in it. Tell us what it is, how it works,
Yes.
and how it might benefit people who are curious about it.
Yeah. EMDR is a evidence-based psychotherapy, that we jokingly sometimes refer to as exposure therapy with jazz hands. So something that was
Our
developed.
theater background's like
Our
that.
theater
We know
background's
just
coming in.
yes.
Well, and that's because the research over time has shown that what we call BLS, or bilateral stimulation, started from eye movements. Uh, but the idea is that you're activating both hemispheres of the brain, that left, right. One of those things that researchers showed, we know it helps. We also know EMDR and the theories behind it work even if you don't add the BLS. So I have clients who find over time, they don't need the BLS. Most of my clients I don't do eye movements with. I have buzzers that go buzz, 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 left, right. Some people tap. I do tapping, but anything that adds a left, right movement. So think about the way if you're on a phone call, you might be pacing around and it helps you think better.
Oh, I'm a
Or
pacer. Yeah.
right, the way when you're walking, perhaps on a walk and your mind's wandering. Even when we're in REM sleep, your eyes are doing that right left movement in your brain. Like
Fast.
while, yeah,
Yeah.
during REM sleep, which is the time of night where things are getting stored in your memory, your brain's deciding what to keep, what to pitch. So again, I want to be clear that the research around the BLS portion of it is inconclusive as to whether or not that is the key mechanism. But it can be useful, we think, for the purposes of taxing the working memory. And for many of my clients are neurodivergent, it's also almost like a grounding element or a fidget. Well, I can't see me, but I'm tapping left, right as I'm saying this.
Yeah, she's got her arms around her and almost like
Like
in
a
a self-soothing
like a
way.
butterfly hug.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
I
the
love that you
tap,
have multiple ways depending on your
yes,
client.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there are other therapists. I know somebody with a light bar, right? You can do tones, left, right, and earphones. I've done EMDR with kids where I have them color across the page and go left, right. So the point being, all of this is that we as humans tend to internalize lessons that have been modeled for us, even if they were not intended to be handed down to us as such, right? Perhaps your
Yeah.
parents did not intend for you to internalize a lesson of, I'm not worthy, I don't matter. And these
Yeah.
core beliefs tend to cluster around worthiness, deservedness, responsibility, safety, control, social connection. And again,
Foundational stuff.
foundational stuff that you and I can look at and go, well, I know logically I'm worthy, but your nervous system has held something that tells it, I don't agree. Because the brain doesn't care whether you or I would look at something and call it a capital T trauma or a little t trauma. It doesn't matter what it is. If something is stored maladaptively, the brain treats it as trauma. And when we say that, what we mean is the nervous system activates as if it's happening now. So,
Mhm.
if you and I are talking about uh, something that I haven't fully processed and held well, like I was in a car accident when I was a young child, and I've processed this so I can talk about it without it becoming very activating. But let's say I hadn't processed it properly, my brain would have stored it in a way that would have my nervous system in high alert, just
Yeah.
bringing up the topic, because in my brain it would be like it was happening right now. Your brain does
Yeah.
not know the difference between the original and the replay. So that's why it feels so visceral and so powerful. Like folks get pulled away.
I love the way you just put that. Our brains don't know the difference between the original and the replay. That's
Yeah.
big. That's big. That's a great way to put it in
It's,
terms that we can get.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they can, when we help them. A lot of people will, I mean, think of all the things you've gone through your life. Much of it, you've reprocessed adaptively in that time or in that time frame without even knowing, right?
Yeah.
But
You don't even think
it's
about it
you
again.
don't
It
even think
happens
about it,
and
but
I don't
it
think about it, but you might think about it and we experience the same exact thing.
totally differently. So
Yeah.
it is not on us to say that's valid as somebody's trauma and that's not, right?
Thank you.
It is just
No
it is
trauma
how their brain.
comparison, folks.
Yeah. I always joke like there's no such thing as the trauma Olympics. You
That's
are,
great.
it just
There's no
matters how you
prize in
store
this,
it.
guys. There's no
No,
prize.
not at all.
In fact, we're
So
going to help heal this.
in fact, like when I'm sitting across from a client and they go, "Oh, well, I feel a lot of shame the fact that I couldn't," let's talk about back to, burnout. I couldn't even keep carrying it. I couldn't try hard enough. I'm so shameful about that.
Yeah.
That's actually a block to the work we have to work on. I have to work through that shame block first before I
Mm.
can work on out in the first place. Um, so there's some order of operations math that has to happen. But zoom out, this applies to all of my work because you can hear these are internalized beliefs that perpetuate relationally. And so I had this beautiful training in EMDR. I learned it while I was still in school. So it incorporated itself into my clinical identity very early. And then I learned about this structural analysis of social behavior component that I added on and went, wait a second. Outside of the therapy room, I want to do this burnout and identity work at scale because I know how to and I can work from the bottom up. Most organizational strategists and consultants and interventionists are working from the top down. I'm going to work relationally from the bottom up to understand if the pattern landed here, let's go backwards and figure out how it perpetuated in the same way I would do with EMDR.
I love it. And great next segue. So, talk to us about how you do work with organizations. How are
Yeah.
you pulling all this into organizations now?
Yep.
Because I know you know this, but
Yeah.
friends, you might not think about this often, but we spend
Yeah.
a lot of time at work with the people at work. It's
Yeah.
huge part of our lives and
Yeah.
investment. And if it's not well, then we're not well. So
Yeah.
what is this bottom up spiral instead of you're right? Most people are like, hey, leaders, when the leaders are like, I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
doing it my way, and nothing changes. So
Yeah.
so
I
talk to us about how you work with organizations.
Yeah. I talk a lot about this idea between the gap between intent and impact. So, a leader may intend to cultivate a community that feels like "Ah, we're all a family here. We all jump in." And yet, the impact on an employee who goes, "Oh, I just feel taken advantage of," right? So, it inherently generates this level of mistrust even if,
Ah,
again, your nervous system doesn't call it that at top brush. And then perhaps you're internalizing it because it could go a few different ways. The way I do this work is I think about how that gap shows up and I help organizations map. We say one thing, but we're actually performing or rewarding another. And so, one of the things I'm working on, I have a short diagnostic tool on my website. There's a bigger one coming alongside the white paper.
very cool.
And I write about the first intervention is really just bringing awareness to this topic because to be
Awareness is
able to go,
crucial. It's always
yeah,
one. Then that's
it,
it. You're right. Observation is not neutral, but it's quantum physics, quantum mechanics. The minute we
absolutely,
observe it, it is already starting to
absolutely,
change. Yes.
absolutely. So
Yes.
the second you are in what's going on for yourself, like both from a quantum, but also from you're taking it out of your right brain into your left brain, right? You're taking something that feels emotionally charged. And when you observe it and you step back and you have this air of non judgmental awareness towards it, mindfulness, you can go, oh,
Non-judgmental is key.
this
Yeah.
is not. This is not about me. This is actually maybe not my fault. Now, it's not. I'm not saying that individuals don't have a role to play because we can. The next part is locus of control, but again, just naming it means we can start to work with the pattern, name it to tame it. So the first part of my work is just truly awareness. I do a lot of writing, I do a lot of this, a lot of guesting, because historically we have understood that burnout is not an individual failing. It is a systems problem. That literature is not new, but nobody was ever mapping the mechanism by which things perpetuate because burnout, in its definition, is a relational condition. It is a condition of perpetual overexhaustion of relational factors in a workplace.
Oh,
So, for me to be able to give you a tool that explains this is how relational dynamics perpetuate and become internalized, that's my role here.
yes. Relational, guys. That's us relating to each other, which is essentially what you're doing all day long at work is
It
relating.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not just relating to your colleagues or your manager, you're also relating to the processes that have been put in place and to
Mhm.
the organizational culture as a whole. Your entire organization is relating to its competitors, it's relating to its constituents, it's relating to the industry trends. I think a lot about, I come from the arts, I was in both nonprofit and corporate arts, but there's this feeling of, well, you knew what you signed up for. You didn't join this job. You didn't come into theater for the money. You knew you'd work late nights. And that's all true. And it gets internalized as this excuse to take advantage. So
Yeah.
even then, the relationship that an entire industry has to itself of if we hold this posture, it must mean we care more. And caring more then gives us the power relationally to make this a one-way power dynamic.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you have said burnout is not a resilience problem, it's a design problem. So how are organizations unknowingly teaching people to slowly disconnect from themselves? How
Yeah.
does that happen? Because if
Yeah.
people are listening and they're like, again, something's off, don't know what, but that's a good place to start even. I feel
Yeah.
disconnected from myself. And then you start kind of figuring out the whys there, but how
Yeah.
are organizations
Yeah.
unknowingly, right?
Yeah.
Unknowingly teaching people just to
Mhm.
disconnect from themselves.
Uh, it has this question around your identity and your role have fused. So you said it yourself. You were a high achiever. You were juggling multiple jobs. You were taking on something else. And I bet if at that time I had asked you, like, Lisa, tell me about yourself. Who are you? You probably would have led with what
Well,
you
I'm a
do,
corporate
your roles.
educator. Yes.
Right, there you go. And you might have said, and I'm a wife or a parent or whatever, a friend.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, we don't necessarily often hold our identities as being multiple parts. We tend to believe that we are one thing. That's why people say, I want to get back to myself. I want to feel like myself. I feel disconnected. But I would argue that when you're in that kind of what we call capital S self role, and you're able to, with a non judgmental awareness, the part of your brain that observes all the different parts of you, that is the facilitator. So, back to your point,
I
how do
like that word
organizations?
facilitator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a facilitator, guys.
Well, and the facilitator is kind of offline, or the facilitator is like, come on, guys, let's go. We got to do this on behalf of the business, on behalf of the organization.
Don't let your
When
5-year-old self run the show for very
Right,
long.
right. When identity and role has fused. And so in that case, stepping back wouldn't just feel like schedule change. It would literally feel like a threat to who you are.
Oh, so it's
Yeah,
scary at first, uncomfortable at
absolutely.
first.
Yeah.
If
So
this isn't who I am, then who am I? And oh crap,
yeah,
what then? Yeah.
yeah. And you've built, not you necessarily, but again, I want to remove the fault, because this is a pattern that's perpetuated for so long. Is hard to figure out, A, where did it start? And B, it didn't just start in one place. It's a whole collection of things.
The
So
system,
the
system,
system,
the
but it
patterns.
gets
Yeah.
reinforced until you can't tell, where you end and your job begins. Think about, I was just speaking with a client the other day who's about to go out on some leave, and she feels guilty that she's leaving people in a lurch. And I said, well, people go on leave all the time. I think about when I went on
Mhm.
maternity leave, but I can absolutely relate to that feeling of the guilt, because only I know how to do this and people are counting on me. And we know in our logical brains, if we step out, they'll figure it out, or they
Yeah.
won't, and it'll go to shit, and then they'll figure out how to clean up the mess. But it feels so personal, and we carry our own shame, guilt, grief, identity work on top of what we bring. I say all
Mm.
of this too with the caveat of course, I want you to care, because if you don't care, even a little bit about what you're doing, you're going to have this kind of passionless, loveless relationship with your workplace or the work you're doing. And at the same time, it can't be your everything. So it's this delicate dance. But from a purely how do systems perpetuate these dynamics perspective, I think giving folks this vocabulary is one of the most critical roles that I can play.
And you're gonna provide a link
Yeah.
for them to
Yes.
start, a
Yeah.
starting place for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it. I love
2
it.
minutes, you answer 9 questions, it takes you, yeah, less than 2 minutes, and it tells you where is your own gap. Literally, it gives you a percentage and a little scale. How aligned is your organization
Oh,
with
I
what
love
you
quizzes.
intend?
I
Yeah.
wish I wasn't a podcaster now. I'd go take it. I love quizzes.
I'll see you
As a
right after.
child, you remember the magazines
Oh,
as a
I
kid? Yeah,
love
when there were
magazine
magazines?
quizzes. Yeah, and buzz. I
Yes.
mean, it just, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
doing
we
them
love
in
the
the
quiz.
line while your mom's griping to you about what you're putting in the shopping cart.
Yep.
So, okay. So, Ashley, if
Yeah.
somebody is listening, maybe this is this is why I love podcasting too, is maybe this is the 10th time they've heard these things said. However,
Yeah.
this is the time it clicks, because sometimes that's
Yay.
what it takes. Yeah. What if they realize they've spent years performing, or
Yeah.
what if they realize there's some things that can be there's opportunities for improvement in
Yeah.
their workplace, and they're the
Yeah.
individual, not the ones who run it.
Mm,
What are best next steps for them in terms of
yeah.
working with you, or where to
Yeah.
go?
Yep. In terms of working with me, meaninginpractice.com is my website. And I write about these same topics weekly on Substack. But most organizations either bring me in as either a keynote speaker or a workshop facilitator. I can come in and actually work with your team in real time to help facilitate a conversation between whether your leadership or a wider pattern. So we do that pattern recognition. And my advisory work is really customized to what an organization needs. So I can come in and give you a diagnostic and give you a sense of what's going on. I can come in and facilitate in a longer way. The goal, again, really being here that There are plenty of consultants who can come in and speak with you about organizational culture or turnover and burnout. Unfortunately, a lot of the interventions that end up coming from those are band aid or whack a mole fixes, and they're
Yep.
not addressing the root cause. So, my work is really want to go a little deeper, a little bit more structural, and to understand that an accurate diagnosis is critical if you want to make lasting change.
Yeah, for everybody. Top
Yeah,
down, bottom up for everybody.
absolutely.
Before I let you go, I have a couple of questions for you, but I
Yeah.
want to circle back to this because I think it's important because you just highlighted something. We're hearing about burnout all over the place, which means everybody's burned out. But what
Yeah.
is burnout? One more time
Yeah.
from your lived experience in getting there
Yeah.
and from the work you've done with so many organizations and
Yeah.
individuals. What is burnout?
It is, by definition, an occupational phenomenon, and it is perpetuated. Yeah, I know.
That's a
It is
strange
a
phenomenon.
I know it's not, and the DSM and diagnostics are always slow to catch up. So there's not, you can't get diagnosed with burnout the same way you could get diagnosed with depression or anxiety. But I have a feeling it will be in the next iteration. It's recognized by World Health Organization. Obviously, it's
I did
recognized
not
in
know
the
that.
cultural, yeah,
I
it's in
did
the
not
cultural
know that.
conversation.
Oh,
Mhm.
whoa,
Oh yeah, the
cool.
Surgeon General wrote a big report about burnout a few years back. But again, up until this point, it has been looked at as this is the end point of
Your
relational
fault, work
dynamics.
harder.
Exactly, yeah. Or at least just persistent occupational stress, right? That
Okay.
persists and continues to the point that you feel again, a lot of the symptoms would mask as anxiety or depression or show up in what we would call symptom management, right? By doing things like
Mhm.
maybe you're drinking or you're smoking a little too much weed or you're shopping a little bit more or
Mhm.
you're dissociating and not connecting from the folks in your life. You don't feel like yourself. And so when I talk about diagnosis, I really care less about, what is burnout versus depression versus anxiety. It's all the same soup. What I care about is how did this perpetuate from a workplace perspective? There are different kinds of burnout. There's caregiver burnout, right? There are
Right.
other avenues by which burnout perpetuates. And I'm not suggesting that my mechanism is the only way burnout perpetuates. Burnout is traditionally and usually most associated with the workplace. And so that's my particular focus.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us one more time what we're providing for people. There'll be clickable
Yeah.
links, guys. You don't have to write this down, but just get it in your head. Ashley, how can
Absolutely.
people find you to work with you?
Yes. So on my website, I have a free 2-minute diagnostic tool. It's 9 questions, and you rate yourself and your organization. And this is great whether you're leading an organization, whether you are the bottom of the rung, even if you're currently in a workplace role, maybe you're thinking about somewhere you used to work, and it'll ask you, okay, your organization says it values work life balance, but do you feel that work life balance? And so you rate it on what's actually happening, not what the intent is. And then it's going to spit you out a little diagnostic tool of where you fall on these patterns and how large your gap is at your organization. And from there, there's a share it with a friend, share it with a colleague, or reach out to me and let's talk about what you can do about it.
I love it. Well, tell us this. What are the outcomes when organizations actually invest in the
Yeah.
people they work for and to and with to
Mhm.
help with burnout? What improves?
Yeah, retention is the big thing. And we know that turnover is so extremely costly, right? It is cheaper and better organizationally from a sheer knowledge perspective to keep an employee and retain them as opposed to having turnover and having to acquire a new employee. The same thing goes for your customers, right? Because your folks who are on the receiving end, whether you're business to business or not, are going to feel that impact. And so, when we are doing this work to make sure that folks don't internalize these maladaptive processes and systems and dynamics, we're asking, hey, stay a little longer. We're invested in you. When we're willing to hear their feedback and to trust them in the roles that we've put them in and understand that they are people, not just patterns and not just cogs in a machine, then
Humans.
you are humans. You are helping ultimately your bottom line.
I love it. And
Yeah.
they're happier and more
Mhm.
productivity. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's all up from
You
there.
just Doing the right thing. No big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah. There's actually joy in the workplace. I don't know. That
Imagine
sounds
that.
strange
Yeah.
to say. Oh
Well,
no, that
and
would be terrible.
to your earlier point, like, I know a lot of the folks we're talking to are going to go, "Oh, well, I don't have the power to change the whole system." And I'm not asking you to, and you don't have to. We all have our own personal locus of control. What is your sphere of influence? What decisions can you influence? If you have a process that you step back and go, you know what? I want to try to this process was put in place because I was trying to streamline something, but I realized really it's just functioning as a bottleneck. You could make a change around that in your own
Yeah.
way. And when you do that, you are modeling it for others. Again, we're talking about systems and patterns perpetuating, but you're
Yeah.
also running a neural map for yourself of the more you do the adaptive thing, the more likely your brain is to go to that mode the next time it needs to default to a response.
I love it. Have a new default, guys. It's amazing when that happens for you, when it finally clicks and you have
Absolutely.
a brand new default. And if you're not sure where to go because of your position or whatever, just reach out to Ashley and she can
Yeah,
direct you from there. All right,
absolutely.
Ashley, you ready for your 2 questions before we
I
close out?
am. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
First question, in your own life, what did you perform in order to survive?
Yeah.
And what did dropping that role masker performance do for your life?
Oh, no big, small questions.
I know. It's some people are like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
I was like, "I know."
So, competence is the first thing that comes to mind, right? My identity became so fused with competence. And the performance of competence is an alluring one because who doesn't want to feel competent? Who doesn't
Yeah,
want to feel like, I got this? You throw whatever at me, I can handle it.
yeah.
And it, you even just in hearing that, you can hear how you're willing to then perpetuate your own burnout because
Yeah, you
you're
stand up
taking
a
on, you're
little
taking that.
taller and you're like, "I got
Yep,
this."
I got this. If I
Yeah.
could just, if I could just, if I could just, and then turn around
Oh,
for the shame of why could I not handle this, right?
yeah.
And then tell me the second part of the question again.
And what did it do when you dropped that performance
Mm,
for you? What
it
improved?
it is something I'm still working on even now, years after the fact of realizing that's happening. And the improvement is not overnight because this has been stored in the nervous system. But the realization, I think, for me, that I can go a much longer chunk of time and say, oh, I've been regulated this whole time.
Yeah,
Or I used to notice the exceptions were times I was regulated. Now the exceptions are times I'm dysregulated. That's what I notice.
I love that. I love that. And what happens is what used to take you for a few months only takes you for half a
Yeah.
day now, right?
Right,
Like, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
I
yeah,
tell my therapy clients and my organizational clients, the goal is not, oh, let's make this never have happened, or,
yeah.
oh, I'm never going to feel activated. You're a human being working in complicated systems and in
Oh,
relational
life keeps
spaces.
happening when you do this work, yes.
The skill set is that there's this practice, this ability to notice, like you say, it takes you, and that you can come back to it. It's the core of
Yeah,
mindfulness, faster and with more ease and in a more adaptive way, so that
less
you
beating yourself
feel,
up in the
yeah,
process.
more in
Yeah,
control. Yeah.
absolutely. All right, Ashley, what do you, just from your lived experience, want us to be talking more about and having more conversations about?
Oh, I want us all to be talking about systems. I think, especially now, I think about the way AI is coming in and
Mhm.
our here's everyone feeling so fractured. We're really at this reckoning, as you say, like there is more interest in the midlife experience. I
Mhm.
want a real conversation happening around let's uh, let's look at those pieces of ourselves where we assume it's identity work and be willing to uncover, okay, how much of this is a lesson that I was handed down or learned or internalized or taught? Like, I
Yeah.
want us to try to interrogate each of our deeply held beliefs, whether that's about ourselves or the systems we operate in.
I love it. I love it. Ask better
Yeah.
questions, guys. That's what we
Mhm.
say in here. All right, my
100%.
friends, listen, I'm going to ask you out there the same question today. What are you performing in order
Mhm.
to survive? And how might your life improve? Or maybe you just feel a little bit lighter by dropping the role masker performance.
Yeah.
I am your host, Lisa Lacy, here with my guest, Ashley Gibson. And when you find the answer, we will see you at the edge. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.